I've heard people say that every family has at least one secret, one hidden truth buried so deep that nobody dares to speak it aloud. I used to think ours didn't. I thought my family was boring, predictable, ordinary in the most stereotypical way. A father who worked too much, a mother who cared too deeply, an aunt who lingered around us a little too often, but nothing unusual, nothing alarming, nothing dangerous. But I was wrong. In fact, I spent most of my life living inside a story that wasn't mine at all. A story carefully crafted, carefully hidden, carefully controlled by the people I trusted the most. And the truth only surfaced because of one stupid, accidental moment. A piece of peeling wallpaper, a gap behind a wooden panel, an envelope no one expected me to find. And once I opened it, everything else in my life began to collapse, slowly at first, then all at once. It all began 3 months after my father's funeral. His death had been expected, complications from an old accident that left him partially paralyzed years earlier. I'd always believed the story. He slipped while fixing something in the attic. A tragic fall. A long recovery that never really ended. A slow decline. I never questioned it. Why would I? My mother told the story so consistently, so calmly, that it became truth. And whenever I asked my father about it, he would simply smile and say, "Accidents happen, Ethan. Life's unpredictable." It wasn't until after he died that I discovered he had been hiding something far more unpredictable than an accident. My mother decided to sell the house. It was too big, she said. Too lonely. I think she wanted to erase the past. Every creaking stair, every dusty shelf, every memory that reminded her of a man she claimed to love but never seemed to truly understand. I offered to help clear the place out. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to feel close to my father one last time. The study was the last room I tackled. My father used to spend hours in there, reading, writing, thinking. Even as a child, I felt like it was a room filled with quiet tension. He kept it locked most of the time. And whenever I asked why, he would laugh awkwardly and say, "Because every man deserves a little privacy." It didn't feel funny that day. I moved an old bookcase away from the wall, and the wallpaper behind it tore slightly. Something about the way it flapped, loose, worn, made me pull it back. That's when I saw the wooden panel. It didn't match the rest of the wall. Someone had carved a tiny slot into it. Maybe it was a hiding place. Maybe it was a confession booth. Maybe it was just the last place my father trusted. Inside was a single envelope, my name written on it. To Ethan, read when you're old enough. Dated 15 years ago. My stomach tightened. 15 years ago, I was only a kid. Why would my father write something to me then? And hide it? I opened the envelope. Slowly, carefully. I felt like I was defusing a bomb. The letter was brief, too brief. But what it said shook me. Ethan, I fear someone in this family has betrayed me. Someone I trusted. Someone who may hurt you one day. I will tell you everything when the time is right. But if you are reading this now, it means I never found the courage. Be careful who you trust. Not every person who loves you has your best interests at heart. The letter ended mid-sentence. Half the page was torn off. I stared at that jagged edge for a long time, wondering if the missing piece was somewhere nearby, or if whoever tore it off knew its contents too well. When I showed my mother the letter, she went still. completely still, like a statue carved from ice. Her reaction wasn't surprise. It was calculation. She stared at the letter longer than she needed to, and when she finally spoke, her voice was too controlled. "He must have written it when he was sick," she said. "You know how confused he became. Except I didn't. He wasn't sick 15 years ago." I asked her why the letter was hidden behind a wall. She brushed the question off. She told me it was nothing. She told me to forget about it. But her eyes said everything she didn't. They said she was terrified. That night, I lay awake replaying every strange memory from my childhood. Every argument I overheard, every hushed conversation between my mother and my father, every moment when my Aunt Marian stayed too long at our house, too involved in our lives. Something had always been off. I'd just been too young to see it. The next morning, I visited Marianne. She was always warm, always affectionate in a way that felt borderline intrusive. She hugged too tightly. She lingered too long. She cried too easily. But she had never harmed me. I trusted her. More than I trusted my mother sometimes. But when I showed her the letter, something cracked inside her. Her lips trembled. Her shoulders slumped. She whispered, "He wrote it. He actually wrote it." Before I could ask what she meant, she pulled me into the living room and sat me down. Her voice was shaking. "Your father wasn't paranoid, Ethan. He was scared. He tried to hide it, but I saw it. He told me things I promised I'd never repeat." She disappeared into another room and returned holding a wooden box. Inside were photographs of her and my father, young, happy, holding hands, embracing. One picture showed him kissing her forehead. My heart slammed against my ribs. She confessed everything. They had been together before my parents married. And according to her, my father never truly let her go. "He married your mother because he felt trapped," she said. "She was persistent, manipulative. He tried to leave her several times, but she threatened to take you away. He stayed for you, Ethan. Only for you. It was too much, too sudden, too insane to process." But Marianne wasn't lying. There was too much pain in her voice, too much history in her eyes. And the photographs, those were undeniable. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. "The fall, it wasn't an accident. He told me he felt unsafe. He told me she knew about us." I left her house in a fog, my mind twisted in knots. The story my mother had told my entire life suddenly felt like a convenient, polished lie. When I confronted her again, she didn't deny the affair. She didn't deny knowing about it either. But her explanation was different. She said my father was unstable, manipulative, cruel. She said he preyed on Marianne's emotions, that he loved attention, not either of them. She said Marianne had always been obsessed with him. And then she said something that changed everything. He told her things just to keep her calm, to keep her attached. "Your aunt has always been fragile. You know that." I didn't respond. I just stared, because every word from her sounded perfectly rehearsed. When I asked her directly whether she pushed my father down the stairs, she didn't faint. She didn't scream. She didn't slap me. She didn't deny it either. She simply said, "I protected this family. Your father was trying to tear it apart." Those words lodged themselves in my throat, sharp as broken glass, because she believed it. every word. That night I tore through the study. Couldn't stop. I became frantic in a way that felt inherited, as if paranoia was genetic. I searched every drawer, every old notebook, every crack in the floorboards. And that's when I found it. A scrap of paper wedged behind a loose panel, not from the same letter, but unmistakably in my father's handwriting. If anything happens to me, look for the truth in the people closest to me. One of them is not what they pretend to be. Paranoia or revelation? I didn't know. Then came the call. It was nearly midnight. Marianne's voice trembled so violently I barely recognized it. Ethan, someone broke into my house.
I rushed over.
Papers were everywhere. Drawers overturned. Cabinets open. And in the middle of the chaos, perfectly placed on the table, like someone wanted it to be found, the missing half of the original letter. My father's handwriting continued the sentence from before. The person who betrayed me is someone you depend on completely, someone whose love is dangerous. I am afraid of your mother. I nearly dropped the page. Marian wrapped her arms around herself, whispering how she always knew my mother was dangerous, how she always feared this day, how she always felt my father was taken from her. But as she spoke, something felt wrong. Too dramatic, too rehearsed, too perfectly timed. Something in her house didn't add up. No signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen. Only chaos that could have been staged. Was she the victim? Or was she playing a part in a story she'd wanted for decades? I left with more questions than answers. When I returned home, my mother was waiting, sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. No lights, no sound, just her silhouette in the shadows. She looked at me, her eyes hollow, exhausted. "I know you went to her," she said. "I know what she told you." I sat down across from her. I didn't speak. She exhaled slowly, like she was deflating. "I didn't kill him, but I didn't save him either." She said the fight had been ugly. He had tried to leave, tried to take me, tried to run away with Marianne. She followed him into the attic to stop him. He pulled away from her. She grabbed his arm. He lost his balance. "I reached for him," she whispered, "but I was too slow. I watched him fall, and I watched him change after that. And I lived with that guilt every day." It was the closest thing to truth I had heard from either woman. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled. The sale of the house, the psychological evaluation, the silent war between two women who loved the same man in opposite ways. One with obsession, one with fear. I asked distant relatives for stories about my family, old neighbors, my father's co-workers, and every story painted a slightly different picture, versions that overlapped but never aligned perfectly. My father was charming, manipulative, deeply loving, dangerously reckless, kind, secretive, broken long before the fall, broken further after it. My mother was protective, controlling, emotionally unstable, self-sacrificing, possessive, trapped in a marriage she couldn't escape, trapped in a love she couldn't let go of. And Marianne, some said she had always been fragile. Some said she was the love of my father's life. Some said she never grew out of her obsession. Some said she was the real threat. The truth wasn't a single story. It was a collage, torn pieces stitched together by pain, lies, and desperation. In the end, I never learned who tore the letter, or who left the missing page on Marianne's table, or whether the break-in happened at all. My mother remained in treatment. My aunt moved away without telling me where. My father remained a ghost, a man defined only by conflicting memories. And me? I kept the letter. Sometimes I take it out. I look at the ink, the torn edges, the words written by a man who feared the people closest to him. And I realize something. He wasn't warning me about one of them. He was warning me about all of them. Because love didn't destroy my family. Possession did. Fear did. Longing did. And the idea that any of them could live without the others. That was the real danger. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be if the wallpaper hadn't peeled away. If I had never opened that panel. If I had never found that letter. Would I be happy? Or would I always feel that something was wrong without knowing why? But the truth is, the story was always there, waiting for me, waiting to consume me the moment I was old enough to understand it. And now that I know it, now that I've inherited the weight of it, I can never unknow it. I can never return to being the kid who thought his family was normal. Because the truth is a scar, it doesn't heal. It just teaches you to live with the pain. And my family's scar? It stretches across generations. A wound disguised as love. A secret disguised as protection. A life disguised as a lie. And I was the only one left to carry it.